Case by Di Bartolomeo. Stolen the pass cross court. Randolph with the rip. And then, oh my word! Saban Leigh announced himself on the Euroleague stage. Adovic calls timeout as he says, the videotape didn't make us know just how high this young man can jump. Randolph with the dime. Ercan Osmani is going to be on the highlight reel all around the world as Saban Leigh gets his first Euroleague points.
Welcome to Basketball Passport. I am your host, Leigh, joined by Lakers Lounge and General Lakers insider Anthony Irwin. What do you think of that dunk by Saban Leigh out for Maccabi?
I feel pretty bad for the poor guy on the other end of it. That's what business decisions are for. Like, he didn't
one of those
anything.
dudes. Hey, he had a couple of bangers in the NBA, but in transition to get up there like that was pretty special. So nice stuff there from Saban Leigh. This is, of course, the Basketball Passport Pod at gmail.com. Might as well get it out there now. That's the email address if you've got any mail you want to send us in there. It's a little bleak at the moment, so if you've got a question, send it in and we'll try to get to it, because on this show every Thursday we take a look at what's going on in the world of basketball. That is in addition to our Sunday night show talking about the NBA. And you can follow us here, youtube.com/basketball passport. Also at Lakers Lounge or my personal YouTube account, Leigh Ellis76. How's your week been there, Anthony?
So far, so good. There's a chill in the air.
Yes.
Looks like the high for the next couple of weeks is like 85. The Dodgers won last night.
Flying, aren't they?
I'm gonna go ahead and say it. I'm risking a lot by saying it, but I think I'm doing pretty good.
Hang on, the Vikings must have not played last weekend then, because you haven't mentioned
They
them.
had a bye. They had a bye.
5-0,
They had a
aren't they?
bye. Still undefeated. They didn't lose last week.
Oh man, everything's turning up Anthony right now.
Well, except for the Lakers.
Yeah, okay. Well, today, we're going to look at news and basketball events from around the world. Then later, I am going to focus on the stunningly beautiful capital of Croatia, Zagreb, one of the most gorgeous cities you can possibly visit in your life. I had an incredible couple of days out there playing a lot of street basketball, and I had a game at a court that was one of the most impactful pickup basketball games I've ever been a part of. I'll tell you why later on. But we're going to start with some international news, and we're celebrating yesterday what would have been Manute Bol's 62nd birthday. The big man passed away, I think it was 15 years ago. And, look, Manute was one of those players, a fantastically talented player, and did make an impact despite the fact that obviously, he was rather thin out there. And Ball Is Life tweeted this out yesterday, showing some of the massive games he had throughout his career. Look at this, 4 points, 15 blocks, nearly a triple-double there with the 10, 15, and 9. Another one, 13 blocks, 11 rebounds, 12 blocks and 7 rebounds. And in one game there, 10 rebounds, 10 blocks in 15 minutes. And Manute remains the only player in NBA history with more block shots than points scored in his NBA career.
That's an incredible stat. The thing I'll always think about with Manute Bol is it's insane. The picture that you have there is of him shooting a basketball. It's insane to be as long as he was and have that clean of form in that moment.
Yeah.
It's kind of like swinging a golf club. I don't know if you play golf at all, but most golfers tended to be over the years pretty small guys, because the longer your arms get, it generates more power, but more can go wrong. You watch Brandon Ingram shoot a basketball sometimes, and it's just like all arms, and that's a very clean look there for Manute Bol. I would really love to see him in this era with that combination of skill and size and athleticism.
Well, I think the big thing for him as well was playing under Don Nelson there for a couple of years in Golden State, who the mad scientist who was just like, get out and shoot some threes, man. And he did. And he hit 6 in a game once, and against the Utah Jazz in the 89 first round of the playoffs, he hit a huge three-pointer. And I remember Pete Van Wieren on the call saying, Manute Bol, the only man who shoots those threes downhill. And it was huge. So happy birthday to Manute. We got still Bol, his son, in the league. He's quite talented. Bol just doesn't seem to be able to really crack a consistent rotation. But, the fact that he is still hanging around, I think, is, encouraging there anyway for Bol. So happy birthday to what would have been the 62nd birthday of Manute Bol. Have you watched any of the Netflix Starting Five series?
I have. Yep. I'm on like episode 8 at this point. Oh, wow. Eventually it gets kind of difficult to keep watching the same commercial over and over again, but it's overall, it's a really cool look at the guys that are portrayed there.
Well, Barack Obama, the big basketball fan, as we know, he made a cameo and he hit us with his top 5, and we've got it here. What'd you make of his top 5 there? Obviously, Jordan, he's an Illinois boy, Obama, so he was there during those prime years. LeBron makes sense. Him and Steph are tight. They're buds. Hakeem Olajuwon, I think that's, again, a throwback to Obama's era of when he was a huge basketball fan. And then KD, not a bad 5-man rotation there. What'd you make of it?
It's the perfect lineup. Right? Like it's perfection. You have Steph spacing the floor at the point guard spot. You have that guy, Michael Jordan, who just did everything really well. You have LeBron James, who see Michael Jordan. And then you have Kevin Durant basically operating as this floor spacing 3 or 4. And then you give way to, in my opinion, the best combination of defense and offensive centers of all time.
Yeah.
In Hakeem Olajuwon. And yeah, I just interviewed Miran Fader for the Lakers Lounge. She was on there because she just released her book about Hakeem, and it's fantastic. I'm listening to the audiobook now, and it's incredible. It's really, I mean, it's Miran Fader. Like it's what we've come to expect of her. And she was saying how like it was like this proud moment for her that Obama would be like, Hakeem Olajuwon would make his top 5. And it was this really cool moment. And I think it really kind of symbolizes exactly why we're doing this podcast is for that global growth and for an international player to be in a former president of the United States starting 5, given all of the players who have ever played that position is it's fantastic, and it really symbolizes the kind of growth that the basketball world has undergone.
Oh, that's right. And for Hakeem to come when he did, I mean, of course, they misspelt his name for the first nearly 10 years of his life there. He was Hakeem Olajuwon, and then he changed it in 1991 to the correct spelling, which is with an H. But I remember him on those early Rockets teams. He was a bit of a hothead in his younger days. Had a huge fight with Mitch Kupchak. You probably remember Game 5 of the Western Conference Western Conference Finals, actually, in the Forum there when the Rockets upset the Lakers in 5 games. Keem was having a big night. Mitch was trying to match up with him, and they got into it there. But that was, of course, the Twin Towers, the Ralph Sampson and the Hakeem Olajuwon years. Never really. Not long after that, in fact, the next season, I think Ralph Sampson's injuries began, and they never really, we never really saw what they could be. But that series, I remember Bill Simmons actually interviewed Bill Fitch, who was the Rockets coach, and they just came off a tough series against the Nuggets. And he was like, we would have swept the Lakers if we didn't have to. I think they flew from like Denver the next day straight to starting the finals against the Lakers, and they didn't get any time off. But Bill Fitch was like, we would have swept the Lakers then, which was, that was prime Showtime Lakers. That was a huge takedown, and that's why the Rockets were strongly considered to be, the team that could have been the NBA team of the 90s.
Yeah, everybody thinks of Hakeem's 2 titles as the ones that were won when Michael wasn't playing, but that team was fantastic. Hakeem was incredible. And it was funny, as you were talking about the fight between Mitch and Hakeem, it made me think back to my childhood because I was young for the Showtime era Lakers. So I only knew Mitch Kupchak as the GM who traded Shaq. Now, he did obviously do some great stuff in the Lakers organization before then. But after he traded Shaq, my dad was like, oh, you think, he was kind of telling me how like how he felt about Mitch, and he wasn't thrilled about the Shaq trade either. How could they not get those guys to figure it out? Blah 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 blah. And Dad found like on an old VHS tape that fight between Hakeem and Mitch, and I was rooting on Hakeem. I was like, knock him out.
Oh man, that I tell you, because that is the game where Ralph Sampson hits that crazy shot to end the series. You know, it's the half court pass. I think it went in from Robert Reed, who passed it there to Ralph Sampson, who sort of, he really just like bullied Kareem down low right into the paint there, rose up and flicked it over his shoulder there. Because I spoke to Ralph Sampson about that. And you know, because Robert Reed was the one, I think it was the pass that did it, and Ralph's like, come on, man, it was the shot. But the iconic image, you know, we talked a couple of weeks ago there about Dikembe lying on the ground when the Nuggets upset the Sonics, and another iconic image in a similar way is Michael Cooper's just dropping to the ground after that shot goes in from Ralph Sampson. Michael Cooper just enshrined in the Hall of Fame too there, but that was one of those moments where, you know, Dick Stockton, Tommy Heinsohn on the call, and
Tommy couldn't have been more thrilled.
Yeah, you know, Tommy was actually pretty objective in those early days. He was actually a really good commentator. It wasn't until he got a little bit later when he just became the chronic Celtics homer there. But man, that is such a great game, such a great series. And then of course the Rockets went on to lose to the Celtics in the finals, where Ralph Sampson got into it with Jerry Shishting in one game there. But no,
he's fighting everybody.
Yeah, I know. There's some really good social media accounts that sort of show all the stuff that went on there in the 80s, and it's always either Bill Laimbeer or Danny Ainge getting either beaten up or throwing a punch. It's incredible. And shout out to NBA cobwebs. But okay, I just wanted to ask you then quickly. I mean, we talked obviously about Obama's 5. Let me know what yours are. Who are you going with there? You're keeping any of those guys? You're replacing anyone?
I mean, if you want to swap out KD for Kobe and have Kobe and Michael on the wings, you could do that. But I'm going to be completely honest. This is the perfect lineup. Like, I don't think I don't think you can score on these guys. I don't think you could stop these guys. Like, especially if they all, and this was the cool thing about the times that these guys have, not these guys specifically, but NBA superstars, getting to play in the Olympics. You watch them accept roles that are necessary for them to win basketball games. Devin Booker played his butt off in terms of defense this last Olympics, the trip to Paris, and I have a good feeling that these guys would accept whatever roles were necessary there, and I don't think you can do better than that lineup.
No, and Kevin Durant coming off the bench too there in Paris was huge. Remember the very first game against Serbia? He was just on fire. I think he ended up
3 games to miss.
Yeah, I think he ended up starting in the gold medal game there. But that is an important point, because someone like KD, he's never come off the bench in his life. But accepted that role and then went out there and really gave Team USA a shot in the arm too. Like their offense was a little sluggish to start, and then Steve Kerr just says, "All right, let's go with KD and see what he can get going." And he was great. So it was great to see. I would try to force Manu in there for myself, because Manu's one of my all-time faves. I'm not sure who I'm cutting from that list. It's either KD or LeBron. I mean,
you're taking off Michael?
Yeah, no, they're definitely not Michael or Hakeem or Steph. So it's Bron or KD. I'm not sure which one, but I got to get Manu out there somehow.
Can you just be the 6th man? I feel like.
Well, you know what? That's a pretty good point. Yeah, all right. Let's keep Manu as a 6th man there, because no, good to see there, Obama. I love how he's a big basketball head, and when he was president, apparently used to play those pickup runs, very often in the morning. And who was it? Someone went there and said, like, if Obama's on a breakaway, I mean, are you trying to block him? Are you trying to swat that
The no
shot?
layup rule.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, exactly.
you're not gonna. You have Secret Service showing up at your house for a foul you took in a pickup game.
But I mean,
You're like
what do
never
you?
allowed in airports because you
Oh.
you took his cookies.
And then at
Yeah.
the other end, I mean, imagine you cross him over and break his ankle, and he collapses. Like, do you hit the shot, or you just sort of like, all right, I'm just going to travel or something and kill the play? But
He's about to he's about to give some giant speech or something. Like he's
Yeah.
walking up limping, and you're like, I did that.
Yeah,
That was me. Just want everybody to know.
I actually think Obama would want you to play him fair. I don't think he would want you to just let him walk into the paint and score layups. I think he wants to play because he can ball a little bit. We've seen him hit some shots and he loves it, and he's a competitive guy. So maybe one day, hopefully, I'll get the ball with him at some point along the way, and I'll let you know how it goes.
Yeah, please do set a nice hard screen on the former president of the United States.
So moving on to Euroleague now, and Paris basketball got their first win over the defending champions Panathinaikos in Paris there. Nice, a tight one. Paris gets the win 84-80, but it wasn't without a little bit of drama. Panathinaikos have actually protested the result here because there was a couple of calls there on the coach Ergin Ataman, who is a very intense coach, very good coach. He is Turkish, but he coaches Panathinaikos there. And then Kendrick Nunn, he also picked up a tee, which again, the Panathinaikos protest is regarding how those calls were made together. They think it was a dead ball and one should not have been called. I really just wanted to shoehorn another Kendrick Nunn reference in to see if you can see if you'll recoil or rejoice.
I was covered. You'll never know.
But huge there for Paris. I mean, this is their first time in the Euroleague, and they get a huge win against Panathinaikos for now. Anyway, I don't think that result is going to be overturned. I think it's more just Ergin Ataman there, the coach, who is, as I said, fiercely intense, doesn't like to give an inch at all, just unhappy, and I think he's just trying to make Euroleague life difficult there. I was staying in the same hotel as he and the Panathinaikos team at Berlin for the Final Four, and again, he's Turkish, coaching a Greek team, and Fenerbahce, the Greek team, were also in the Final Four. So fans, all the teams were staying in the same hotel. So fans from Fenerbahce were out the front. They saw Ergin Ataman. And as he was walking into the hotel, they started just jawing at him, talking trash. It was one of those carousel doors. He basically got in and then came back out and started.
Could you imagine being the fan?
Oh.
He's like, oh my God.
Yeah. And it was great because I actually was out walking around, and I came back, and all of a sudden there was like police vans everywhere and security, to make sure things didn't get out of hand. But again, it's more just reflective of the intensity and the passion with which he coaches, and he's an incredible coach, Ergin Ataman. So, we'll see what happens there with that result. But for Paris to get on the board, very, very good. They've put a lot of money, they've put a lot of effort into this team. And as we talked about on last week's show, basketball is, the NBA and world basketball is seeing a huge impact from France. And so now they've got a team in Euroleague. They're expecting big things. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs this season, but who knows? And one more last little thing is I actually spoke with Gershon Yabusele, the Frenchman who had that massive dunk on LeBron at the Olympics. Yes, on the Sixers. He was in town, and I asked him about it, and you can tell he's been asked about that dunk a few times. He was...
Has he gotten a call from Nike? Like, you are not to comment on that dunk.
Yeah.
No, it was funny. In one of our previous shows, one of our previous Thursday shows, I think we were talking about Wemby, and we were talking about, and a commenter was, I think, discussing EuroLeague coaches being generally, or foreign coaches being generally more fiery than we are used to here in the States. And I'm now picturing Greg Popovich like decking George Sedano for asking the wrong kind of question on the sideline during a sideline hit for ESPN. George, I'm not saying I would want to see that. George is one of my good friends in this industry. I'm just picturing how I think I'd be rooting for NBA coaches to be a little bit more fiery. I kind of want to see these guys. The most that they'll normally do is like a snide comment about the refereeing. Rick Carlisle last year was talking about how the NBA just wants big markets in their playoff series and so on and so forth. But you know what? Let's racket it up a little bit. Let's see where this really can go.
Yeah, and they might want to follow my man Dane Lucas out there in Madrid. He's from South Carolina, but he lives in Madrid. His dad, Joe Lucas, is one of the Euroleague commentators. So Dane does some work from time to time, and he just this week had a I think it was after the third quarter, spoke to Coach Željko Obradović from Partizan, and they were playing Real Madrid, and he just said, "Hey, how do you slow down Campazzo, Facundo Campazzo? Remember, former Nugget out there." And Obradović just said, "Hey, it's not one player, man. It's Partizan versus Real Madrid." And like it was just that same sort of tone of like it's about the team. It's not about one player. Dane handled it really well, did a great job, and said to him like, "Oh, well, how do you slow down the team?" And then Coach Obradović answered, and it was fun. But Obradović and Popovich are very good friends, actually. So they sort of have a similar mentality there when it comes to those interviews during the game. But look, to be fair, I think when you're in that moment too, I think it is tough for the coaches to like when you're coaching and you're in the moment, it's hard to then just sort of rationalize your thoughts and articulate them when you're thinking about plays, who's going to come in, who's maybe someone's in foul trouble, someone's having a bad game. You're trying to manage the game. It's hard to shift your focus immediately to a TV interview.
Yeah, I kind of wonder if, with them being good friends, if Pop and he like go over film of their interviews like that. Yeah. I got this one. I won this last one.
Yeah, it would be that would be a great fly on the wall conversation, wouldn't it? If those two were in a room having a bottle of wine together, just hearing what they think of wine. Yeah, thinking of basketball media and the questions they've been asked, and it's interesting. So anyway, yes, Paris gets their first win over Panathinaikos. There's more games today. Round 4 of Euroleague underway. Very exciting stuff. Red Star Belgrade currently sit on top of the table, which would be huge for them. They haven't made the playoffs for a couple of seasons. They're trying to get back in. The next topic on the international calendar for us, even though the NBA season hasn't begun yet, on November the 2nd, out in Mexico City for the annual Mexico City game, and it's a big one. We got the Miami Heat, that makes sense, against the Wizards, the Washington Wizards of Washington. And you can see on the graphic, this graphic that I found there, you've got Vasquez, of course, for the Heat. And then who do you go with the Wizards? Who do you go with? You go with Kyle Kuzma?
I'd probably go with Kuz.
Yeah.
But, I think they went with their highest paid player, right? I think Poole is their highest paid player. So that was really smart, though, to go with the Mexican on the Heat side, right?
Of course.
Because one of the biggest missed opportunities here for the Lakers is not drafting Jaquez, the UCLA kid who did a whole bunch of winning in college, and then is Mexican. The Lakers fan base has a huge portion of Mexican fans. He would have been, I'm not kidding, Leigh, I think he would have been one of the most popular Lakers to be drafted, especially if he played well, since like we're talking, Kobe would be, obviously tops, and then Magic. In terms of players that the Lakers specifically drafted, Jaquez would be in that conversation for popularity. Yeah. Because there would have been so many fake Jaquez jerseys sold at the swap meets. I'm telling you, every single little Mexican kid would have had because I've received those jerseys in growing up, and he would have been such a star for the Lakers. Has been absolutely phenomenal for Miami.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Miami, Phoenix, I suppose, is, Golden State, any of those teams closer there to the Mexican border would have been pretty good for business reasons for him as well. But when anyone goes to the Heat, you just have to look at guys. I mean, yourself, like Gabe Vincent, Max Strus, a couple of guys who were in the finals a couple of years ago. Go and get the big money, but they don't seem to be able to reach that same level that they did under Eric Spoelstra and the Miami Heat. And so I wonder with Haskes if it's something similar there with him, if he was in a different situation. But this is a team that makes sense though as well to go to Mexico City. I mean, you may as well send a team with the Mexican player on there. And again, I don't know the exact process behind who they choose. I think they probably, the teams have to bid or they get asked by the league, however it goes. But if you're a Mexican fan and you're getting the Wizards, I mean, you're probably. Do you think that's moving the ticket sales all that much? I think people are going, man, I got to get there to watch Jordan Poole play this game. Not to disrespect them, but they're just not a draw at any point, really, are they? I mean, no one's looking on their calendar and going, man, when the Wizards are in town, that's the ticket we want to. That's the one we want to circle on the calendar.
Yeah, it's kind of like those London games for the NFL that always seem to feature the Jaguars and some bad NFC South team. I do kind of think that I don't know how the Lakers haven't made a trip down there yet.
Crazy.
Given what we just talked about, how big a portion of the fan base. If you don't want to take away one of their home games, fine. If it's the Lakers and the Suns should play a game in Mexico City, two giant fan bases in the Mexican culture. The travel is easier for those two teams than it would be for, almost any other team in the league. It makes all kinds of sense. And if the point is to grow the game when you have these games abroad, you can't send quite possibly one of the worst rosters ever assembled.
I mean, but it's true, isn't it? You want to see teams that people are like, man, I definitely want to see Kevin Durant and Devin Booker out there playing. Like, I'll spend the money, I'll do everything. But I just don't understand it, especially when Mexico City is potentially one of the cities that the NBA is going to expand to. Potentially. Look, in terms of the business side of it, I think the Mexican City market makes a whole lot of sense. It's a huge market. It's the hub to Central and South America. I mean, it's one of the most populated cities in the world. There is enough money. There's enough support there. So I think they should at least start the NBA by having more games out there, regular games. It's not hard to travel out there. The facilities are already in place. The fan base is there. And again, Mexico City is lobbying to try to persuade the NBA when they do move into expansion here in probably the next 3 or 4 years to be one of the expansion teams. And so I'm just surprised. I was there last year for the Orlando Magic Atlanta Hawks game, and it was good. Probably the same thing to an extent, though. It wasn't a huge Orlando fan base or Atlanta Hawks, but it's certainly not the Wizards. But also, I am hoping to be there again this season. I should find out in the next couple of days if I'm going to go down there or not, and do some stuff with some connections I have down there, because it's a whole week of basketball activity and events, and it's a whole lot of fun. I don't know. Have you ever been to Mexico City?
No. Furthest south that I've ever been. I mean, you do the cruise ships and stuff like that, so. You go pretty far south that way. But in terms of places that I go regularly, I just Juarez was I grew up a ton in El Paso, and we would walk across the border all the time, and that was the extent of it.
Yeah. Well, it's a great city. It's I was there, like I say, last year, and it was one of those cities that I thought, man, it's going to be loud and it's going to be dusty and it's going to be chaos, and it's going to really test the senses out, because there's so much going on. But and I was only there for 5 days, and so for such a massive city, I didn't really get to see all of it. But the areas that I did see were really, really cool, and people were great. And Definitely, I would recommend, especially, you're only probably an hour flight from there, I would guess, in
Yeah.
Austin. So,
Hmm.
easy to get down there. Great food, of course.
Yeah.
Really welcoming people, and the thing that probably surprised me the most, the traffic worked. I'd seen all those, those videos online of just Mexican City traffic where it just looks like no one moves at all,
Yeah.
and actually flowed pretty well. So, really, really surprised by that.
Yeah, it would be great if the NBA expanded down there. There's already the G League team that's down there.
Hmm.
That has been mostly a success, in terms of city support there. Um, it's a city that I think lends itself well to that. And again, like, there's a team in Toronto that is very popular there. I honestly think that if they gave Vancouver another go, it would do just fine.
Yeah.
The league clearly has enough talent to expand, right? When you have guys like Lonnie Walker, who's probably going to get waived here in the next couple of
Yeah.
days by the Boston Celtics. There are good players who are not going to be on NBA teams this season. I think expansion is coming sooner rather than later, and I do hope that Mexico City gets one of those teams.
Yeah, just last point on this, because JTA played with the Lakers briefly, didn't he? But he wasn't Mexican born, though, I don't think, was he? I think he's
Um,
more
Well,
just,
the other issue that he ran into is he was hurt for a lot of
right.
his time there with the Lakers. So I think initially there was some support there for JTA, but then he was just like never able to get fully healthy, and I think it really kind of undercut any possibility of like the ballooning of support that I think you would see for Hawkes.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's slightly different, but yeah, Jaquez, be interesting to see what transpires there. November 2nd, anyway. If anyone's in Mexico City wants to check it out, there's probably some tickets still available for that one. Okay, so it's time to move on now to the city of today's program, the city we're honoring, and it is the beautiful capital of Croatia, Zagreb. I've wanted to visit Croatia for a long time, and I did when I came via Ljubljana in Slovenia. That was the first stop when I took off a couple of years ago on my trip playing basketball around the world. And I'd been in Ljubljana. I'd just come off a late night bender with Sasha Doncic, which I'll get to in a later episode. Still recovering from that one, which was great. But yeah, I woke up the next morning, had to catch a bus down there. It's very short. It was only about 2.5 hours, I think, from Ljubljana to Zagreb. And, immediately its beauty just struck me. It was such a spectacular place, and I'm actually got many episodes on Croatia that I want to talk about, because I had 3 stops there and I had so much fun and saw so much. But the one thing I will say is driving down the Dalmatian coast there, it's more beautiful the further you go. It's an incredibly picturesque scene there. But Croatia itself and Zagreb is a historically important basketball city and country, because, of course, Croatia was the team that made the final of the 1992 Olympics, the gold medal game against the USA. Played them pretty well. I think they lost by 30 in the end, but relative to what the the Dream Team was doing to everyone else, was really, really important. And of course, a big part of that was Dražen Petrovic, who started his career with the Portland Trailblazers in '89. Really couldn't get any burn. They were a really good team, though, very deep team, and he was one of the first guys to come over. He came from Real Madrid, and he was behind Clyde Drexler and Terry Porter there in the rotation, and Rick Adelman just really struggled to fit him in. But one of the reasons I wanted to go there was just to see how Croatia was so good at basketball back then to where they are now, where things are not so good. There's been a lot of internal problems. They've had some financial problems, and Croatian basketball, which used to be so proud, is now, at the opposite end, where they can't get into the the Euroleague. And it's taken a big step back. In the football world, they've done quite well. They made the final of the World Cup back in 2018. Luka Modric is their star player there. But in the basketball world, we haven't seen that sort of, if you think that team that made the gold medal game in 1992 or 32 years later, there's not many Croatians in the league. There's only been one Croatian that's ever played for the Lakers. You know who that is? He's still in the league.
Still in the league.
Plays for their home city rivals.
Is it Svi?
No.
I don't know.
Zubac.
Oh.
Yeah.
Man, I should have known.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so this was a city that I really wanted to go to and see what was happening out there. And you might remember as well. Well, I'm sure you'll remember because we only talked about it on Sunday night. Was Derrick Rose? You know, he was in his early years there, especially around the MVP year, one of the most popular players in the world by far. He had such great support, and then in 2013. At this court here in Zagreb, which is called the Tuškanek Court, Adidas did this massive renovation and really made the court beautiful. There was a huge ceremony here. This photo's on the side there, but you can see like just the high quality. It's got the D-Rose symbol and label there in the middle, and that looks like a beautiful court. You know, like it really was a court that I was hoping to play on. Now, I had been told that the court doesn't look like that anymore. And in fact, it had been sort of, rotting away. And this is what it looked like when I played there. So, you can see, obviously, there's still the remnants remain of what that court was in its prime, but clearly it's been rotting away there. And, it was one of those things that, there you can't really see it, but here it is here. Basketball is all in. That's still the Derrick Rose, that was the slogan they were using there when he was, when that was what they were making it about. And then there's a close up there. So if you compare what you saw, what it was in 2013 to where it was when I played, I mean, it had unfortunately rotted away. And so I spoke to a couple of people out there who said, they said, oh, there's some other courts you can play at in the city and there's some nicer ones. But I really wanted to go and check it out because that court historically meant a ton to the people of Croatia. It was originally a tennis court, and two guys discovered it in the late 40s, around 1946, 1947. And they decided, hey, man, we can't just leave this as it was an abandoned tennis court, by the way, too. So it was kind of, derelict at the time. And these two guys who were big basketball fans decided, well, let's turn it into a basketball court. And they did. And that became a court that Sabona, the local team there from Zagreb, played on and became European champions. And it was, quite an incredible turnaround for, again, they were playing an outdoor. This is not like a nice, fresh, clean indoor stadium. It was an old court that used to get packed with fans and made Sabona, a really, really powerful team.
Yeah. For one thing, I was looking at it. It's just something about playing basketball when you're surrounded by nature like that. You have the trees that are right there and border the court, and it's just it just feels nicer to play basketball in that kind of a setting. I don't know. It's a bummer to kind of see the court as it was in the pictures that you have it there.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I prefer outdoor courts for that reason. They provide a bit more character and a little bit more atmosphere. It was a little bit drizzly and dreary the day that I played there, but again, we got a nice group of dudes who came out and played, and it was really fun hearing from them, about what basketball meant in Croatia and in Zagreb, and what that court meant as well to them. And when I go out there and I play these games and I shoot them and then I put them together, the story, and I put a video up and try to share the experience and tell the story, I don't really sort of know how it's going to be received and what people are going to think, because you might look at it and go, well, that looks like a dirty court that I don't really, doesn't look interesting to play on. Some people are fascinated by it and they want to go and check it out. But the coolest part about this was after I put the video together, and I sat on the video for, honestly, it was over a year, because I'd looked at it and the game just wasn't that good. The visuals weren't that good, but I decided, you know what, I'll tell the story of the court. And I put together a video. And just before I did that, I searched online and I found Sabona basically on Instagram. And I just sent them a message and I said, hey, can you just tell me a little bit more about the court and the history and things like that?
Yeah.
And my friend Bartolome sent me this huge email just with like all the history laid out. And so once I saw that, once I got that and I started reading through it, I said, okay, there's a really cool story here to tell. And so I started incorporating that into the video and put it together, and you know, I sort of put it up, and I didn't really expect too much of it. Only about a week or two after that, I got an email from Bartolome out there in Sabona, and it was the coolest email I've ever received, because he said this: "Hi Leigh, I just wanted to thank you and inform you that your video about the Sabona basketball court in Tushkanik has prompted action regarding its neglect. Financial resources have been secured, and in the next 2 to 3 months, a complete renovation process should begin, modeled after the basketball court in Baldekin in Šibenik, which is another Dražan court there." So, you know, the fact that me going there, you know, having that game, playing with those guys and having that experience on the court prompted a local government to actually take action is one of the most coolest experiences that I think I've ever had, because, you know, again, like, it's not like I'm out there, you know, trying to be the professor and trying to cross dudes up or anything like that. I'm just playing to have fun.
Yeah.
But bringing to life the story and the history of the court has generated the best response I could possibly hope for.
So where does that stand now? Have you heard more about the state of the court and when it's all done? Like, when's the trip? When are we going out there?
Yeah. Well, it hasn't been completed yet, but they have got planning permission and approval, and again, the most important thing, as it says there in the message, they've secured the financing to do it. So I know they were hoping to complete it this year. I've been messaging with them a couple of months ago now, and they said it's still on the calendar, but like with most things, you know, there's a little bit of red tape and there's a little bit of obstacles and setbacks and things like that along the way. But they know it will be done, and I really, really hope that it's. I mean, now we're heading into the winter, so it probably won't happen before the end of the year, but you know, whenever it does, I am definitely going to head back out there and be a part of it, because it feels like, you know, something that you really impacted, and it's something, most importantly, for the people of Zagreb now, they can go back to that court and play there and enjoy it and have, you know, hopefully, because this was a big problem, some continual maintenance on the court as well, because that's ultimately what an outdoor court requires, is that upkeep, because it's subject to the elements of those cold winters and then harsh summers. So of course things are going to start deteriorating if you don't take care of them. But that I have to say is an incredibly satisfying feeling to have played at that court that means so much to the people of Zagreb, and hopefully now I'll leave behind some small impact from just going out there and shooting around and having fun.
And that's the point, right? Like, that's, you know, I'm not gonna, I wouldn't imagine that when you set off in this, you would impact local politics or anything like that. But like, I would imagine though that, like, this, you know, given, like, I still find it incredible. You know, you had your deal with the starters, and you had your deal with No Doug Sink, and to step away from it and go full-fledged on this like global pickup tour, you know, I would imagine was pretty scary for some moments, and putting yourself out there like that was probably pretty stressful. And then, you know, to get a reward like this kind of is that full circle. Okay, I'm going in the right direction here.
Well, it feels like this sort of shows what it's more about as well. It's not just about, hey, I want to play basketball and then leave. It's like, I want to try to leave something behind so that other people can say, like, man, that guy came and played, and then again, the city and the local government invested money to make those courts so that we can go and play with them, play on them anytime. and not only you're not just playing on a court, you're playing on a court that carries huge meaning to the city and to the people and the families out there, because again, basketball has been a huge part of Croatia and Yugoslavia before that. And these sort of courts, they do mean something. And so that's what makes it really special, because, you want to have people feel that going to the court is not just about shooting. It's like where you meet your friends, you hang out, you can have a good time, and then you're playing on, really high quality outdoor courts, and working on your skills. And maybe, again, with a country and a city that really loves basketball, maybe this could also sort of kickstart the redevelopment and regrowth of Croatian basketball, because that region is incredibly competitive and incredibly intense. I mean, Slovenia won the Euro Cup back in 2019. Serbia, we've talked a lot about, have the current MVP. They've got so many other players who have had a huge impact on the NBA. So Serbia is doing really well. Slovenia is doing well right now, and Croatia wants to get back up to that level and have a similar sort of impact on basketball around the world.
Yeah, Croatia also, by the way, having a nice little run in soccer. So we know that they're capable of competing at the highest levels in sports. And so, yeah, I'm with you, hoping that they kind of get their stuff together.
Yeah, and so that was one part of the trip there in Zagreb. And there was another part where another experience that was just mind-blowing, because Dražen Petrovic, of course, played there for Sabona. So he's loved and adored there. And there is a museum in Zagreb dedicated to Dražen. Mm-hmm. And his mother, Biserka, she still works in it. She still operates it. It's not a huge museum, but it has, obviously all these sort of accolades and memories and souvenirs from when he played across Europe and in America, and of course for the Dream against the Dream Team there in '92. And so I went to check it out, and I think it was a Monday morning. I wasn't really, wasn't really expecting too much, and I turned up and I bought a ticket. I was the only one in there on this Monday morning, and so I bought my ticket and I started walking around, and I saw a couple of things here, like here's the Croatian team when they went up against the Team USA there. So who else is in there? Raja is in there. Tony Kukoc is in there. A couple of other players. And as I was walking around looking at some of the, trophies and things like that they want, there was another door at the sort of back end of where I was going. And I just sort of thought, that must be another part of the museum. And so I walked in there, and Drazen's mum was sitting there. It was actually an administration office, and Drazen's mum is sitting there on her computer, and I'm just like, oh, okay. I knew who she was immediately. I recognized her. Of course, there was a feature on TNT many, many years ago, but I just knew it was her straight away. And I'm like, oh, I gotta get out of here. I just thought I'd interrupted and been in the wrong place. She closed the laptop and said, no. And she got up and started showing me around the museum and started talking to me as if we were friends. Like it was incredible. Here she is, amazing. Just pointing out some of the photos and some of the memories and how proud she was, of course, of her son. One of the most fun parts was how, now she doesn't really speak English. She speaks a little bit of English, but she speaks Croatian, of course, and Italian. And so she was sort of speaking Italian. I was kind of speaking a bit of Spanish that I know there, so we were both kind of like hacking away in the languages. But the funniest part was when she did get to the Dream Team, and she was like, Charles Barkley, Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, David, like perfect English for those guys' names. And, and it was amazing. And for the next half an hour, 40 minutes, she was just wandering around the museum, pointing things out, talking to me as if we were friends. And it was just the most surreal experience that I can really remember having. Here she is when Drazen was honoured by being in the Euro team of all time at the 75th celebration of the league back in 2022, I think that was there. This was one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had in my life, because, she's the mother of one of the most famous athletes in Croatia, treating me, who she'd never met before, didn't even know I was there, as if I was an old friend. And like, so I had my phone. Obviously, I started to take a few photos. You can see there, but because I wasn't expecting it, I didn't know it was going to happen. It's always a little bit awkward then to get your phone out and just start saying, all right, I'm going to start shooting video now.
Yeah,
like
right.
it's somewhat intrusive and it's impolite. But it's like, man, I wish I could have captured that on camera of her just showing me around and, teaching me about his history again in broken Italian and Spanish. And, there's a lot of nodding and yes. And like, yeah, I can see. And, but even if it's not clear communication, but man, that's a memory from a couple of days there in Zagreb that just will never, ever leave me.
Yeah, on one hand, it would have been nice to, capture some of those moments, but it's also, it's also nice to live in the moment.
Yes.
Right. And it's also nice to be able to like look at that and experience that and be able to tell that story. And, you're talking about how she was speaking Italian and you were trying to translate to Spanish and you guys were trying to meet somewhere in the middle. And yet, like, at the end of the day, the language of basketball is what breaks that cultural barrier. Her knowing the guys' names and her, saying them in perfect English, and you understanding because of your understanding of Drazen Petrovic's career. Some of what she may have been trying to tell you there and the moments that you knew about and stuff like that. That's where like, that's why I love basketball so much.
Yeah.
I could walk onto a court in basically any city. And if there's a run going on there, I will never have known some of the guys people that I'll be playing with there. And yet 2-3 games in, you're playing as if you've known them your whole life. And that's where sports and basketball and all of that really kind of breaks through some of the nonsense we've set up in society.
Yeah. And, you're a father, and your kids are obviously a lot younger. But how proud do you get when you see your kid just do anything that's like, oh, wow, see that,
Yeah.
Like, let's say they put their toy
Miles
away or
throws a
something.
spiral. It's crazy. He's 2 years old. He throws a spiral. And I'm like, holy what? It's incredible.
Wow. She must have got that from mom then, did she?
Yes. I'm going to set it to my buddy because the Dodgers played last night and Shohei hit one of these just absolute chasmic homers.
Yeah.
And the joke going around a few years ago was that like you would set a moment like that to Celine Dion's Titanic song.
Yes.
And I kind of want to get like my buddy Drew grabbed, a moment of his kid climbing across some monkey bars.
Right.
And he said it to that. And I was like, I want to set that to Miles throwing the spiral. Like I want to, like, but yeah, I can only imagine how proud she was watching him grow up. And obviously, unfortunately, with him passing at only 28 years old, she feels like she was robbed of so much of life that she could have spent with him and watched him grow up. But I would imagine, running that museum, talking to people about her son in its own way is a way of keeping him alive and getting to spend that time in whatever way she can with him.
Yeah, well, and that's right. And that's the thing, like, when your kid, imagine, makes it to, the league that no one else had really done that before. I mean, a couple of guys, from the USSR have made it in the NBA, Marshallonis and those sort of guys. But Drazen was really the first one to break through there from Croatia. And then not only that, but then he was really starting to become, like, he should have been an all-star in 93 there. I think he was an all-NBA third team for the New Jersey Nets. They made the playoffs. Like, he was averaging 20 a game. He was really he was in his peak and he's in his prime, and it was cut short. And I think that's right what you said there. I think, working in the museum there, keeping his honor and his memory alive is in some way therapeutic for her, because she, I guess, still wants people to know what he meant and what he was able to achieve. And for someone like me, growing up again in the late 80s and early 90s in Australia, seeing a non-US player really impact the NBA was the sort of person who inspired me to be like, maybe I can make it too to the NBA. You know, I'm still waiting on that call. Maybe Daryl Morey, he's my best shot. But,
Yeah.
you know,
His final season, you mentioned it, 92-93 for the New Jersey Nets. He played in 70 games, started in 67 of them, scored 22 points a game, grabbed a little under 3 rebounds a game. He dished out 3.5 assists per game, a steal and a half per game for him. You know, and also, like, interestingly, 3-point shooting, he shot 45% from 3-point range on only 2.5 attempts per game. So, like, when I look at stats like that, because he shot from the free throw line too, his free throw percentage was 87%. So he was a great shooter.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing that, like, had they just shot more, he left points on the table because of the era that he played in.
Absolutely. And Reggie Miller calls him the best shooter he's ever seen. And that's right. I mean, 2.5 threes a game, it doesn't matter. If you're shooting 45 a game, and that would have been, I think Chuck Daly was the coach of that team as well. So again, a bit of more of an old school guy. You know, they certainly weren't launching the 10 or 11 threes a game like Steph is shooting. And he's probably not going to be shooting 45% on 11 a game, but he's probably shooting well over 40% still. But you know, just such a
45% is insane.
Insane, yeah.
That is such a high number.
And you know, I follow Kenny Anderson on Twitter, and I know Derek Coleman as well. They played on that team. You know, the brotherhood that they formed too there with Dražen was really, really important. And you know, they loved him. They played so well together, and it was one of the saddest sort of stories to one of the best stories for him to even make it there. But again, just going back there to Biserka, I mean, I just cannot believe that, you know, being just, I was in Zagreb, I was on my way to Šibenik. It's about a 2-hour drive, and I said, well, I'm definitely going to check out the museum. I didn't even know it was going to be open, you know, Monday morning at like 9:30. You thought maybe it's one of those ones that doesn't open until 11 or whatever. You go in there, there's no one else in there. Yeah, and then one person that you do find who's in there is
Dražen Petrovic's mom. That's crazy.
And then again, on top of that, I just, you know, you think of like running the business of that, and someone just walks in like unannounced, that you don't know who that person is. And instead of just sort of like passing that person off to maybe someone else who's in the museum to help, you know, guide you around, because I know Drazen's extended family, like nephews and things like that, and cousins, I think, are also connected to the museum. But instead of that, Biserka's like, no, I'll show you around. You don't speak Italian? Okay, who cares? We'll just talk and have some fun. And, you know, so Zagreb, man, stunning city, just absolutely gorgeous city. Great people, incredible food, historical basketball court. Met Drazen's mother, and then, of course, I had to sign off here as well. You can see it at the bottom there. I did the Leigh was here, which hopefully I will be back in some time in the next few months to unveil the opening of the new court, if it all comes together. We'll see. But I know that it's one of those things that when they sent me that message saying the funds have been secured, I was like, great, that's the most important step, because everyone's got ideas, everyone's got plans, doesn't mean anything. But once a local government, a local identity actually says, we've got some money and we're going to do this, then it's just a matter of finding the time and the resources to actually make it happen.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear more about the story. And what an incredible trip! Like I just find myself kind of in awe. That was all in the same trip.
Yeah, and there's more from Zagreb. There's more. I've got a couple more stories there to share, but I wanted to sort of break it up, and because I wanted to again focus today on Tuškanik and the Petrovic side of it. But I played with a former NBA player. I played pickup ball there. And I'll get to that one later on. I met one of Australia's most famous soccer players. I met him out there. And I also played with a street ball legend also in Zagreb. So maybe next week, I'm not sure. I might just tease it and do it in a couple of weeks. But the bag of Croatian stories and activities and events and memories is very, very deep.
Yeah, it's as deep as Petrovic's bag.
Oh yeah, nice one. Nice way to wrap this one up too. So That has been Basketball Passport for Thursday, October 17. Thank you to everyone who has stopped by so far, commented, shared, watched the video. We had a great response to our last video from France last week, which was very, very encouraging. The old Basketball Passport pod at Gmail email account is still a little grim. There's not too much going on in there. So if
I
you
don't
still,
know why it's so easy to remember.
I know,
Right there.
It's crazy. It's crazy. But yeah, I mean, drop us an email. So we'll talk more about it. And as I said, this is our Thursday show where we talk international basketball, and on Sunday nights around 8 o'clock Eastern, that's when we talk Dodgers baseball and the Minnesota Vikings.
And occasionally basketball,
and occasionally the NBA, but usually it's Anthony watching the Dodgers, and I'm just talking to myself. And man, it could be Dodgers Yankees in the finals in the World Series.
It looks like it might be heading that way. I'm knocking on wood. We'll see.
Oh,
but the next time you and I talk, Leigh, it'll be the last show that we do before the NBA kicks off. It'll be we get to preview all of the actual NBA. Like the preseason is finally over. So
yeah, I was at Hawks. I was at the Hawks game against the Sixers on Monday night, and I said to Quinn Snyder, I said, "Man, is preseason too long?" Quinn Snyder, classic. He said, "These press conferences are too long." I said, "Yeah." But this show isn't long enough, but it is. Anyway, we'll see you guys Sunday night, 8 p.m. Eastern.
Did it end? No.